Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. Tonight we're going to go over part 3 of the Sobriety ebook that I have been reading. I've done part 1 and part 2. Obviously, this is part 3. I've got a little bit of a sore throat. I don't know if it's the weather change or, just my voice decided to take a union break. So hopefully I don't sound too, terrible. But anyway, I want to recap over part 1. Excuse me. We did a welcome letter from a gentleman that talked about experiences and stuff, Dr. Timothy Huckabee, and he talked about his experiences and his point of view and stuff on his addiction and recovery. Also, we read about how to use the ebook and how to navigate through it. And obviously, I got this off of my mind just went blank. Drugrehab.com. We got this off of drugrehab.com. It's called the Sobriety ebook, Your Guide to a Better Life by Chris Elkins. Feel free to go on there and get a copy of this. There are also workbook pages and things to go over. Also, too, feel free to get out a pen and paper and write down questions as I go along. Obviously, this is also recorded, so you can always rewind if you need to, or if I go too fast, I apologize, but hopefully you can understand me, and I'll try to remember to slow down if I need to. Anyway, like I said, you can go on there on to drugrehab.com and get a copy of this, or you can follow along, however it works best for you. So anyway, we went over how to use this ebook and how to navigate through it. Also quick tips for sobriety and understanding addiction, understanding recovery, and understanding relapse. Then in part 2, we went over making choices, setting goals, creating a support system, finding a safe environment, and evaluating your environment. We also had some workbook questions and some different questions that the book had talked about. And obviously you can go back to those questions repeated times as they may change as you go on. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just a matter of being honest with yourself and trying to do what is right for you in a realistic way. Not everybody Not everybody has the same technique and same way of being able to cope and learn and reteach themselves, and everybody goes at different paces. And obviously, with so much going on in this world today, it's really scary and dangerous to think about how our world is becoming and the people that are in it. People have surely changed over the years. In this episode of part 3, we're going to be going over setting boundaries. And if we have enough time after that, we're going to talk about triggers and cravings. But our main focus right now are setting boundaries. I talked about in our last podcast that I don't like really necessarily calling it recovery per se. I like to call it healing. And I believe, and there are all forms of different types of addiction. It's not just drugs and alcohol. There are many, many different ways of coping. It could be smoking cigarettes. It could be different types of over-the-counter medication. It could be kleptomaniac. It could be hypochondriac. It could be poker. Sorry, well, it could be poker. It could be gambling. It could be gaming. It could be exercising. You could be addicted to, exercising and being beyond just a healthy perspective of it. There's all kinds of different ways. Anything that you do in a way of self-medicating to cope, is a type and form of addiction. But it's also, in my terms, self-medicating, because you are trying to take something to reinforce and redirect your feelings into something, because obviously you're trying to put them somewhere. And if it's not in a healthy manner, it could be something that could end up being very deadly, but it could also make you feel like you deserve to be dead. And nobody deserves to feel that way. It can cost you a lot more than that one little go round or one little episode or one little this or one moment. And I know that is so much easier said than done, because it's a battle that we fight continuously in our heads. And no matter what we do, it seems like no matter what people do, when they are trying to put themselves back together from falling apart or relapsing or whatever the case may be, a lot of times other people, including people that don't even know you, are very apt to keep, I guess, judging you, but also to never seeing you in any different way. And a lot of that, maybe they might not intend to be that way, say like your family or your friends who have went through hell and high water to try to save you in different ways, that have endured different victimization, if you will, on you and what you have encompassed on their life and what you have taken from them and what you have done to them. And so a lot of PTSD, a lot of worrying, a lot of basically wore out and afraid to go through it again, afraid to sit back and watch their loved one basically die in front of their eyes, theoretically and literally, and there's nothing they could do. They're helpless. And so when somebody has a bad moment per se and relapses or does something that is trying to put their feelings in a negative and non-healthy way, it's really difficult to experience that on an outside end, if you will, especially from someone who loves you and only wants the best for you. And a lot of times people are more apt to judge, especially if they don't know you. But, people are always like, oh, look, they look like they're strung out. And I'm sure people have even said that about me when I've been as sober as can be, and it'd be like, because I'm very hyper. And I do voice impressions a lot, and I talk to myself a lot. And I just have one of the personalities, I guess, if you will. And people just look at me like, what are you on? I'm on me. This is me. I even as they tell me I look like, I'm like a fart in a frying pan, and it's like I'm just all over the place. And I used to go clubbing and stuff, and I didn't drink. And I would be out there, and you would have thought that I was just as drunk as everybody else, and I just blended right in. But I was just having fun. And it was just my personality. And so people are really quick to judge people based off of their perception of what they think they know, or what they don't know, but want to just have an assumption of, if you will. And if you have been through any type of something in your life that you have had to continuously feel like you have had to defend yourself, even defending yourself to yourself, because of so much of society and so much of everything else has made your life and your personality and your mental stability, your self-esteem and all that so questionable, even if it's something so simple. And it makes you feel like you even have to question yourself. Like you don't even believe yourself. Even though you know it's true, but people have made you feel like that you're just full of shit. And when in fact, you're not. And that does something to somebody. A lot of negativity, a lot of self-esteem roles, a lot of trying to cope with things and not knowing where to put your feelings. And some people result in self-medication in any way they can. And sometimes if one way does not work, they might put it into something else. And before they know it, then they have several addictions. They have several things. But then you got the fine line of, is it a habit? Is it a hobby? Is it an addiction? Or is it just a social thing? I'm a social drinker. I smoke socially. I have a habit of smoking. My hobby is I like to shop. I shop and I shop and I love to shop. Or whatever the case may be. But cigarettes, I've talked to this many times, have pretty much the same chemicals as most drugs do, and then some. And I've done a podcast many times on different subjects, and there are over 6,000 carcinogenics in a cigarette. But people say I have a habit. But yet, they're like, I can't. I've got to have my cigarette. I've got to have my morning cigarette. I got to have a cigarette after I eat. I got to have a cigarette after in the middle of the day. I have to have a cigarette driving home, or when I'm stressed out, it calms my nerves down, or before I go to bed. Whatever the case may be, you're putting your feelings somewhere. You're self-medicating. It's an addiction. It's not a habit. It's an addiction. Anything that you have to do to self-medicate yourself, to put your feelings and redirect yourself, whether it's positive or negative, is self-medication. Now, there are positive self-medicating, positive reinforcement, positive redirecting, and that's fine, because it's not negative to be good to yourself. It's not negative to give yourself compliments. It's not negative to smile at yourself in the mirror repeatedly and make a habit of giving yourself positive vibes and positive words. It is not a bad thing to say nice things to other people. Some people are, have a habit of just going through the motions of saying thank you or excuse me or I'm sorry. I don't know how many times I say I'm sorry just out of habit. I'm not addicted to saying I'm sorry. It's a habit. There's a difference. I'm not self-medicating by saying I'm sorry. So you listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Quit saying you're sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, I said it again. It's a habit. You feel like you have to keep apologizing for yourself, even if you haven't done anything wrong. You feel like you have to apologize, but also, too, you're trying to be polite and respectful sometimes, if you will. That's not addicting. That's a habit. So, going over and holding the door open for somebody, that's not addicting. That's being polite. That is going over, and yes, it is a habit. It should be a habit to be polite to other people. Why isn't it a habit to be polite to other people? Why can't that be a proper thing? And some people are like, oh, here, let me hold the door for a minute, because, my woman's watching or whatever. My first ex-husband did that to me one time. He said, here, let me get the car door because there's people over there in the car over there watching us and I want to look like I'm, a gentleman. I'm like, seriously? I'm okay. I've got this. If that's your reasoning. But then I've also been to a store before, and I was across the parking lot, and this gentleman was standing to the right by a couple poles down, if you will, and he literally walked over to the door, held the door open for me, and then walked back over where he was. He literally came over there to hold the door open for me, and I was like, that was the most sweetest thing. And there are times when I go out and I will hold the door open for a guy. And some of them are very insistent. No. I can't do that. And I'm like, role reversal. I'm sure you've held the door open many a times for people. Some of them literally like, I honestly cannot do that. I need to hold the door. They were like, no, I really need to hold the door for you. I really can't not let you do that for me. And it was like a big deal for them. And I was not going to argue with them out of respect for them trying to be respectful and being a gentleman. And that is something that's the world needs more of, and not just from the guys. And I know this might be a little bit off subject, but it's kind of not, because everything goes together. And there are a lot of things that women say about guys, and I, for one, I'm like, oh, it's a guy, what do you expect? And a lot of times, it is jokingly, and guys do the same thing about a woman. And it is jokingly, but all due respect, it really needs to be about both. Because, I'm going to say this, ladies, and guys, don't let your ego grow right now. Guys have feelings too. Guys do have feelings. Guys get emotional. Guys have low self-esteem. Guys have self-worth problems of feeling inadequate sometimes, feeling like they're not enough, feeling if they don't know something that, is manly, they're supposed to know this, and they don't, then does that trump their man card? And maybe they have insecurity issues. Maybe they're... I'm going to laugh at this one, but I try to be polite. Maybe they're afraid of spiders, and the woman has to come and save the day. Bless your hearts. But they're human. I know that sounds ironic, and I can't believe I'm even saying this. No, I do believe I'm saying this, because they are. And guys go out, and majority of them go out and bust their ass to go out to take care of their family. And they come home and they're tired. They're tired. They're wore out. But yet, they're trying to figure out, how do I switch gears? I come in the door and it's immediately this, and this, and this. And it's like, oh my gosh, they haven't taken my jacket off. They ain't put my keys down yet. And I was the same way. When I would come home from work or something, all of a sudden I'm like, can I just get a minute to switch gears? And it's overwhelming. And I'm not saying women don't this either. I'm getting to the women part. But, and guys are like, all I do is work and sleep. Work and sleep. Work and sleep. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to spend time with my wife. I want to be able to go and do some manly things. I want to hang out with dudes. And maybe I want to go fishing or hunting. Maybe I want to go shoot some darts to have a few drinks with the dudes. There's not enough hours in the day. And when there are, I want to freaking sleep. And is it unmanly, if that's a word, but we're going to say it's a word, is it unmanly to want to take a bubble bath? And drink a beer? And relax? No. And if a guy wants to go out and do a manicure, a pedicure, a facial, without their woman or their significant other, is that wrong? No. They should be able to pamper themselves. Why not? They should be able to go and get their temples rubbed and cucumbers on their eyes if they want. You think guys don't get bags and dark circles? And guys, and what if a guy wants to put makeup on and paint their nails? Is that wrong? No. Some people might think, well, that's not, You know what? Who are you to judge that? Your preference is your preference. You want to paint your nails and put makeup on? You want to get a manicure and pedicure? You want to put cucumbers on your eyes? Then don't. But don't damn somebody else, because that might be their positive self-medicating. Same with the women. Woman goes, works all day. whether she's at home taking care of the kids or out at a job or in school. Not saying the guys don't go to school too. But nowadays in life, you pretty much both have to work. Because your daycare alone is going to take one of your paychecks. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Getting help from the government is a joke anymore. Daycare, you want really good daycare for your children, and you think, I'm going to pay this big price of it. No, it's just as if the five and dime daycare took care of them, you know. And it's really difficult to balance that. But then you have women coming home, they're tired. They got to cook dinner. They got to make sure laundry's done. They got to clean the house. They got to take care of the children, give them baths, try to fit their own bath in, try to get you taken care of. You know, maybe they want to go get pampered. Maybe they want to hang out with the girls. Maybe they want to go and do something. Maybe they want to spend time with you. There's not enough hours in the day. But what if a girl wants to go out and work on a car? What if a girl wants to go and buy some tools at the auto store or the, Home Depot or wherever they go? What if a girl wants to go play golf, or she wants to go fishing and hunting, or she wants to go have a beer and shoot some pool? Is that wrong? Because she's a woman? No. Maybe that's her reinforcement self-medication. Maybe she don't want to wear makeup and fix her hair. Maybe she wants to wear a messy bun and wear her pajamas to Walmart. Well, you'd actually fit right in. But, well, I guess that's where all you're doing it. Maybe she don't want to wear makeup. Maybe she don't want to go get her nails done. Maybe she don't want no pedicure and she's got calluses on her hands. And maybe she don't want a bunch of jewelry on her and this, that, and the other and be all pretty and princessy. Maybe she's not the slimmest and most sleekest looking. Is that wrong? No. If you don't like that in a woman, so be it. Who are you? Obviously not one for her. Because if you're going to be that closed-minded to either sexes, then you're not meant for that particular person per se. Now, to twist this, though, obviously I'm talking about positive self-medicating, but also, too, you got the stresses of life. Because while you're also at work, we might not even get to setting boundaries. While you're at work, you got different things going on there as well. Excuse me. And you think drugs and alcohol and different forms of medication per se are not available at your work environment? I've talked in my last podcast or something where bosses at two of my different employers, one had a drug thing and the other one had an alcohol thing. And it was very common for my boss to have whiskey in his desk. And there was beer and stuff in the refrigerator in the back room. And, it's, you come home then, and maybe you're feeling like you're not enough. No matter what you do, it's just not enough. It's a honey-do list. Or, honey, I'm not enough. Or, honey, you need to do this. Or, honey, why are you not doing this? Why isn't this done? Or, I don't feel like doing this. And you're so tired. And then let's add depression and anxiety and all this other stuff you got going on mentally and physically. And let's throw in a couple of health conditions while you're at it. And then also, too, I don't know, maybe you're having a hard time with your kids in school and whatnot. Maybe you had a death in the family. Or maybe you just recently started a family. Maybe you just went through a divorce. Or going through one. Or maybe you just got married. Nonetheless, though, if you're coming from something previous in your life into something new, you're bringing something previous in your life to that something new. It don't just say, oh, hey, here's something new. I'm just going to, I'm gone. It's going to carry over until it's dealt with, and it's something that you have managed to go through and cope with, and however you need to process it, per se. But if it's something that has carried on with you, even from your own childhood, things that maybe you have dealt with, maybe you've been triggered, maybe it's something new. You could be being bullied at work. I've been bullied at work. You think bullies don't grow up into adult bullies? Hell yeah, they do. But all that has effect on somebody. Where are you going to put your feelings? Let's say, hypothetically, you want to play your man card and go get a manicure, pedicure, and a facial. You don't want cucumbers on your eyes. You want a lime or a lemon in your Corona. you don't want to waste the food in the food or on your eyeballs. You want it in your drink. Or maybe the woman wants to go get her nails done, but you guys don't have the money. But she does it anyway. So now you're short on bill money, and you're like, screw it, and you go have a drink or whatever. Now you're even shorter on money. So then you're stressed out, and then you're going to argue about money. And it just goes on and on and on. Where are you going to put your feelings? You're going to take them out on each other? Are you going to self-medicate? Are you going to sit up till dawn and talk it through? I don't know. A lot of times people try to find ways that cope. And just to find out that now they got to cope from something else too. Because a lot of times I feel that when you... Okay, this is my point of view, my opinion. Addiction is not the problem. Whatever has caused you to self-medicate is the root of the heartache and the problem. And sometimes you're not even addicted to the addiction. You're addicted to the emotion and the process of the addiction. And I talked about that in my last podcast. Sometimes it's just the motion of it. Because a lot of times you're chasing a high that you are not going to find. And you're going through your money like you don't have it, because you don't have it. You're taking stuff to the pawn shop or selling things at uber cheap, or you're doing it at the 5-figure discount to chase a high that you're not going to find. To lose things that you really couldn't afford to lose. For what? And the answer would be, probably, I don't know. Because it's gotten to be such a way of who you are that eventually no other identity exists. And when you look at that person in the mirror, you don't even know who you're looking at. You don't even know who in the hell that person is. Where did they even come from? How did I get to this point in my life? How did I get here? Literally. In so many directions, literally. And what if you're all alone? But yet there's people in the other room. Excuse me. I always say, there could be a room full of people, and you could feel utterly alone. And there could be a room empty with not a physical person in there. And feel very at home with a room full of chairs dressed up like people. And to you, that's more comforting than being overwhelmed by human beings in that room. Because it's too much. You can't handle that. And it's not that you don't want to. It's too much. How do you cope? You're going to go, oh man, my nerves are shot. I need to go have a cigarette. I can't take this. Self-medication. Oh man, I've had a day. I need a drink. I can't take this. I got to calm my nerves. Self-medication. It could be anything. Hey man, let's see what's on the QVC. If that's even still a thing. Let me get on Temu. Let me get on Amazon. Let me get on Facebook. Let me get on another social media. Let me get my game out. Oh, yeah, I forgot I had a kid. Oh, is it dinner already? Damn. I'm sorry, honey. Yeah, I know I'm a chick. I can game too. Does it matter if it's a male or female? No. What if both of you are addicted? Where's your kids at? Have they ate today? And I'm not ragging on you. Everybody deserves somewhere to put their feelings and something to do. Hell, I even, want to do some stuff sometimes. I'm on Temu. I'm on Facebook. Whatever. But it's when it becomes and takes over your life. And you lose everything else. Is when it's not as positive anymore. Because instead of playing your gaming all night long into the next day, why don't you play a board game with your kids until they go to bed, then get your gaming out? Compromise. And I'm just using that as an example. If you add up how much it costs you for every pack of cigarettes you go through in a day and put it into a year and then times it by how many years you've been smoking so far, where could you have put that money? And then add on all your medical bills, all your medications. Are you on oxygen? Do you have to have a CPAP machine? Do you have a nebulizer? How's your pulmonary doctor doing? Are they on your Christmas card list this year? How about your heart doctor? Add those into the mix. Your addiction has cost you more than that one moment of calming your nerve. And a lot of times, in all due respect, it is mind over matter. You're just forgetting that your mind matters. And there's a difference in it. So what do? Now let's say you have a family and you're the sole provider, or you have to contribute into your family and your job and stuff, but yet you're fighting this addiction for whatever it is. Maybe you're addicted to going to groups. There's people who go to different types of groups. Maybe some people are like, hey, this is a form of meeting some people. You can meet a dude there or a chick there, man. Hey. Is that right? Or is that a hobby? Is it a habit? Is it negative? You're going to groups. Is that negative? What are you getting out of the group? And if you do meet somebody, is that a negative thing? It's a fine line right there, isn't it? But let's hypothetically say that you have a job and you do have some sort of negative addiction you have to overcome. Or you have some trauma in your life you have to overcome. I guess it would still be the negative. But mentally. So you need to go somewhere and try to get help. Whether it's counseling, whether it's doctor, whether it's in rehabilitation, whether it's putting yourself, wherever, going away for a while, and, whatever the case may be. How are you going to afford that? If you go and do that and you're out the money because you're going to miss work So then your bills are going to fall behind. You're going to miss. You might end up losing your job because will they be understanding? Do they even know you have an addiction? Are they going to be understanding if you sit down and talk to them? Or are they going to be judgmental and be like, I don't know, all up in your grill, all the freaking time? Might as well lift your leg up and let them crawl up your ass. That's how much they're going to be on you. So what do you do? Do you take the chance of being behind on your bills and losing your job in order to protect you as a person, your family, your well-being, your mental stability, your life, in hopes that it works? But then you go and do it and you come back out and you're right back in that environment. And you might think, oh, hey, man, I'm strong. I can. And I compared this one time in another podcast, like coming out of prison. You got all these high hopes, and, you're strong. You're rehabilitated. You're clean. I'm going to do this. I'm going to marry my chick and marry my dude. I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to get, this and here. I'm clean. I'm not going to get effed up no more. And you got it all planned out in your mind. Then you come back out to your environment where you were. And society looks at you and shakes their head. What do? You can't win for losing. But you're not winning if you're going to lose your life. The only ones that are going to be losing in the end of it all, laying in that casket, is you. And I guarantee that is not a positive, self-medicating way to do it. And while you may be, quote-unquote, better, now you got loved ones left behind that now have to figure out where to self-medicate their coping of losing you. You pushed it off on them, unintentionally. And it is a battle. It is a battle to a war that you should not even have to fight, especially alone. You are not the one who has done this just to yourself. It is a little bit of everything in life. It is society. It is your livelihood. It's your job, your atmosphere, your mental stability, your growing up, your whatever the case may be, your coping, your DNA, your environment. The list goes on. You are a product of production. And it has produced something that you don't know what the hell to do with it. Because it has stolen your identity away from you. And you don't even know who you are. What do you do? Do you go to somebody and talk to them? Excuse me. If you have an addiction per se, and you go to somebody and you tell them that you are trying to get rehabilitated and heal, are they going to judge you and write that in the notations of your doctor notes? So you're flagged now as an addict? You're flagged now as an alcoholic? You're a drug seeker? You're a hypochondriac? Or are they going to actually care about you as the person without labeling you per se, but still take notes? Because you can go out there and you can tell somebody, I'm a recovering drug addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. But then you just say, I quit smoking. Okay. Are you a recovering addicted cigarette smoker? I mean, how do you word that? Does it matter how you word it? Can't you just say nothing? Or I'm healing. I'm working on me. I've overcome a lot of things and haven't made the right decisions sometimes for my own well-being. But I'm working on it. I don't need to elaborate what they were because that's between me and mine. But I'm making progress and I'm proud of myself because I opened my eyes this morning and I took a breath. Does it matter what the details are? What if it's not about addiction or at all? Maybe you have something going on. I got OCD, bipolar, severe manic depression, PTSD, OMG, WTF. You name the initials, I've got them. Do I need to go and tell people this? Why? Oh, she's a mental case. Oh, it's your bipolar kicking in. Go take your medicine. You know what? F you. You don't know me. There's a reason why I'm the way I am. Do I need to elaborate with you? No. I'm a human being. I'm working on myself. Why? Not to please you and get your self-approval. So I can survive another freaking day in the prison of my own freaking mind. That's what I'm doing. Does it matter if I say, hey, I'm a recovering addict? Are you going to judge me less on being a recovering addict than you're saying my mental instability, if you will? You know, loco moco, crazy. You're crazy. You done lost your mind. Does it matter? No. But it does to that person you're talking to. And guess what you just didn't do? Help them. And guess what you did? Made it worse. In the meantime, Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, why didn't you elaborate on how well and how perfect your mechanisms and coping strategies are, and what's your positive secret on how you can go with your pinky in the air and your nose up in the air so you don't drown, or wipe the brown off of your nose, or the shit that you just stepped in that you're full of. Please elaborate to them on how positive your life is so they know how they can survive. Or are you going to quietly go home and cry in your pillow as you self-medicate and beg God to spare you and just make the pain stop? You know what I say? There's two people right there that need each other, that could help one another. Because if anybody, excuse me, doesn't deserve to judge another person, is another person. So before you judge something you don't understand, excuse me, try to figure out where you put your mirror. So maybe both of you can go shopping and have some positive self-medication. Or go have an ice cream. If you're lactose intolerant, get some, I don't know, get a salad. Whatever works. Society in a whole, as a group, are so guilty of all the bullshit that everybody else in this world carries in one form or another. Society is the production. We are the assembly line. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't, does it? But it does. Because we're just little robots going through the motions. As the same thing just comes out, being spit out for the whole world to be have mass production of. Because everybody has to have one. And it all has to be the same. And if not, let's get a better one. And if that one don't work, let's get a better one. And so on and so on and so on. Excuse me. And in the meantime, everybody's going to be a robot going through the motions of what? What everybody else has told them and made them feel like they need to do in order to do what they need to do to be able to be wherever they need to be. And they don't even know where the freak that is. So what do? You try. You know what? In all honesty, that's the same question I'm working on. Because I don't have that answer. I don't know. And if I did, you bet your behinds I would let you know. But unfortunately, I am working on that too for myself. I have done some things in my life that I have had to try to heal from. Many have not been my own. And some of them are just learning by experience. Trial and error, if you will. Some literally almost cost me my life. Literally. Because I could not cope. I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop. I just wanted the pain to stop. And it was that deep to me. One moment of my life, one breath, was the difference between me and none. With a gun to my head. My right temple. Bawling my eyes out. I was there. So I am not going to sit here and say that it's not a big deal. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm judging anybody. And I'm not going to say that you don't have the right to your feelings. And I'm not going to say that you're not worth saving. Because you are. And you may never know the answers to questions you don't even know. You might not never find an answer to questions you ask that people make you feel like you're stupid for asking. You might receive answers to questions that people just gave you to patronize you, and you took seriously. Or maybe somebody gave you an answer to a question just to shut you up for their own selfishness. For whatever reason. Maybe they don't even remember you asking. Maybe they were so effed up they don't remember. But it left a mark on you. It might even cost you your life. And if it did, obviously you wouldn't be listening to me. Well, that's not necessarily true either. Because Because you can be alive and feel like you're dead. You can be alive and be, as people call it, vegetable. Nobody deserves that. Nobody. So now getting into the ebook. And before I do that, I would like to say, my hats and my prayers, you go off to all of you. Whosever ear I'm in right now. Because I know all too well how suffocating it could be to take your next breath. And I pray that you find ways to redirect your pain and your negative and deadly self-medicating ways and reinforce them into something positive. Trade them in. Trade them in for something positive. Take your money and go do something positive with it. Form your own support group. Play games and have cookouts and, whatever the case may be with your friends and your buddies that have been self-medicating with you. Be the example. Sometimes it just takes one. One person, one activity, one word, one breath, one moment, one death to change everything. So in this one, on part 3, we're going to talk about setting boundaries. Excuse me. If I can get through this with my throat, because it's a little dry. And I'm sorry I keep clearing my throat in here. I'm not trying to, but I've got a sore throat. And it was just, for a while there, I had laryngitis again, so I'd be on here like squeaking. So I was trying to give enough here to be able to recuperate enough to be able to have some sort of voice, to have something to say, because I didn't want to leave this hanging. Because there are so many people that need to hear this, including myself. And I've taught myself that I need to be in my own audience. And I do listen to my own podcast. Sometimes I listen to the same ones a couple times. It depends on what it is and where my mind is at. Because I had one the other day that I was in a spot with a thought that I was having. And I was struggling with. And I listened to one of my podcasts. In the middle of my podcast, I touched on that very thought and feeling. And I was like, damn, there I am. I needed to hear that. And whenever I say something in these podcasts, I say it with my heart, my whole heart. And there's a lot of times I might get a script out. I type up my stuff, do my punctuation, even though nobody's going to see it. I do my own punctuation. I'll print something else. I'll free talk it. Whatever the case be, I'll do it. Like right now, I'm going to sit there and read an ebook, and I'm already almost an hour in, and I've just been talking. But everything I've been saying is straight from my heart and totally from what I feel and believe. And sometimes, just because I don't remember verbatim what I say, doesn't mean I don't feel it. And doesn't mean that I don't need to hear it again to remind myself of exactly what I need to hear. Because it is easier said than done. It is easier said than remembered. It is easier said than to figure out and try to how to do. It is easier said sometimes than to even say. And I have been working on that. Adamantly working on that. So, setting boundaries. Relationships and friendships are valuable parts of our lives. Friends and relatives make us feel loved, happy, and secure. During the best of times, they make us laugh and smile. Other times, they console us and help us overcome stress and sorrow. But relationships can be overwhelming. Friends and family can cause stress. They can be positive influences one day and negative the next. That's why relationships should contain healthy boundaries. Most of the time, these boundaries develop naturally. However, it can be difficult for someone in recovery to explain that they are no longer wish to consume alcohol or other drugs to friends they used to drink or use with. Creating boundaries is about giving choices to people in your life and enforcing consequences for the choices. It isn't easy. Let's start that line over. It isn't about making threats. It's about explaining what you will and will not tolerate in your life. Healthy relationships must include healthy boundaries. Before you create a boundary, you must understand what you will and will not tolerate. Excuse me. And they have a couple of questions here. So if you want to jot these down, feel free to, or you can come back later and write them down. Or like I said before, you can go on drugrehab.com and pull up this ebook. It says, reflect on some of the reasons you may become sober and the goals you set for maintaining sobriety. Number 1, how can others prevent you from achieving your goals? How can others prevent you from achieving your goals? But also, my question then, I'm going to add in this, because, I'm going to have to turn it around here. What do you do to prevent you from achieving your goals? What do you do to prevent achieving your goals? Number 2, what consequences are you willing to enforce? What consequences are you willing to enforce? On the flip side, what consequences have you had to suffer? What consequences have you had to suffer? What have you lost? Excuse me. Was it worth it? When you know that, when you know what you will and will not tolerate, you must communicate with the other people in your life. Communicating boundaries. When you communicate boundaries using I language, such as, I feel betrayed when you offer me a beer. Avoid you languages, such as, you make me angry. Be clear with the boundaries you're setting and the consequences for choosing to cross that boundary. The person you're communicating with should understand what you're saying. Don't beat around the bush about it. Be honest with your feelings. Now, sometimes, I've said this too in another podcast. What if you are a closet addict? What if you are trying to get sober on your own? And nobody knows. What if your significant other or some of your very, very best friends or close friends are in the circle with you, or other family members or friends, or coworkers, or even your boss per se? What do you do? They always say, hey, you need to stay away from people and change your environment, change people you're with, get out of that environment. Yes and no. And I've talked to this before in my other one. You might not be strong enough to be able to handle being in that atmosphere in the beginning. Some of your friends, family, or loved ones will not be as supportive, not because they don't want to be, but because it's convenient for them not to be. Or because they they don't know how to be. Or whatever the case may be. Because they have a hard enough time being strong for themselves. Maybe it's not easy for them to be strong for you. So maybe you can't go over there for a while. Or you can't see or talk to somebody for a while. Or if they don't take you seriously, and you're very adamant about it, you have to pull away. And if they're not supportive of being in your life and being understanding at the same time, if they would rather choose their addiction and their self-medication of the negative way over even being in your life or being in life, and it affects you, what do? When you don't want to be out of somebody's life, but you feel like you're being made to choose between something, and it hurts. Because you have to make that decision to leave them behind. But then you fight with that choice because you left them behind in what? What you're trying to save your life from. Did you leave them behind so that way they're still in that life too? And then if something happens to them, you're going to carry that on your shoulders? Or you spend your time worried to death over them because you don't know if they're alive or they're not alive, or something's happened to them, or they go MIA because they're so effed up right now that they don't even get a hold of you to let you know, hey, I know I respect that you're trying to get sober, but I just want you to know that I'm alive. You know, and it's like, what do? Do you choose between those you love? Or do you choose between those you love? And you're like, maybe that don't make sense. Yeah, it does. Do you choose between those you love to be able to live and survive your life in hopes that you will live past to get sober to live? Or are you going to choose the same way, but on the flip side of it, in order to help them because they are your life? So saving their life is saving your life too. Because if something happens to them, where are you going to be? Are you going to be right back in your self-medication? Laying right next to them in a plot beside them? Or are you just going to go about your way like nothing happened? It's that deep. Literally and figuratively all the way around. Now the ebook goes on to say, here are examples of how to communicate boundaries using I language. I can't maintain sobriety when you offered me alcohol. And I do not like the person I become when I drink. If you offer me alcohol, I will leave. If you continue to offer me alcohol, I will no longer hang out with you. Or, I feel discouraged when you make fun of me for getting sober. If you make jokes at my expense, our relationship will have to end. So let's say, for example, You're on medication. And somebody you know and love knows you're on medication. Okay? And something so simple gets started into an argument. And instead of being understanding and listening and trying to resolve the argument per se, they want to throw daggers at you and be real smart-ass about it and tell you to go take your medicine and call it out by name. Not all of your medication, just the one. That's wrong. That has nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. That has to do with mental stability. So somebody's going to make fun of you and your mental stability. You don't even need to worry about them telling them about the drugs and alcohol or any other self-medicating people are doing in life. They can't help. They can't handle your mental stability. What the hell is everything else? And vice versa. What the hell does it matter? Matters a lot to the person you're doing it to. Setting boundaries can be challenging, but enforcing them can be even more difficult. It's hard to end relationships with people we love. Don't set a consequence that you can't realistically enforce. If you don't follow through, then the person won't take you seriously in the future. Sometimes friends and family will say they won't use drugs in front of you, or they won't tempt you. When they go back on their word, be strong and persistent in your dedication. Your sobriety without them is more important than relapsing with them. Again, I take it back to what I was just saying. Sometimes, let me rephrase this before I even say it. For example, I don't know how many people have heard this. Let's say you got people out drinking. Excuse me. And it's time to go home. So you're all intoxicated. Who's the most soberest one to drive home? Excuse me. Who's the most soberest one that can drive us home? Oh, you haven't drank as much as I. Why don't you drive us home? Okay. Now, I know we've all probably have heard this or been through this. What are the odds of that? Because also too, excuse me, you could be as sober as can be. That don't mean the next car next to you is going to be. You know how people have innocently died at the expense of somebody else's choice of self-medication? Or socialness, or activity, or hobby, or habit, or decision? Excuse me. So, when you go and try to get sober, let's say hypothetically, you step back and you have to distance yourself from those you love in order to try to get stronger, to be able to handle being back around those you love. For one, because you love them and you want to be with them. And because, hey, they don't always do that. There are other sides to them. But sometimes you might just be the strongest one, literally, that goes back for them. Because it is that important and that deep and that life or death. Because sometimes even if you live, you wish you were dead. And sometimes when you're dead, other people wish they could do anything in the world to bring you back. And it is that important. It is that important. Here's another bunch of questions they have going on here. We probably won't touch much on this ebook, but I feel like that's okay. Because I needed to say this, I feel like, because it does all go together. Life is not consistent of an ebook. Life is not consistent of a book. Life is not consistent of social media and internet. It is about life, human beings, self-experiences, knowledge, and lack thereof. And everybody is affected one way or another in this world. By something that has not been positive self-medicating. I would guarantee it. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. Because I would like to hear your story on how you've done it. And I'm sure the whole world would want to know too. What is your secret? And I don't mean that to be a smartass. What is your secret? So in these questions here, it says, think about your relationships. Reflect on relationships in your life and how they affect your health. Answer the questions in the spaces provided. What type of relationships or support system do you need to maintain sobriety? What type of relationships or support system do you need to maintain your sobriety? What do you need? What is going to help you? Now, some people might say, well, if I know that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. You're damn right, Skippy. I concur. So maybe we should say, what can... You know what? What is it that you think that didn't work before?
Microphone access turned off for all apps.
What do you think that you could do before? Okay, sorry, my phone rang. Lost my track here. If I repeat myself, I'm sorry. So, maybe you can ask yourself, what have you done before that didn't work for you? And how do you think that you can learn from that? And what can you take from that to do something different from it? Add to it, take away from it, whatever the case may be. What new resources have you been able to find or think that would work? Do you know people that have been through the same situations that maybe you can learn something from them, or maybe be able to talk to them, and do something different? Because if something didn't work the last time, and say you've tried it again, say, for instance, you've went to rehabilitation, and you're rehabilitated, let's say hypothetically 6 months, and you're doing great, and I applaud you. Because even one moment of a pass around of saying no thank you, I applaud you. So it's 6 months and you relapse. You have a moment. Don't beat yourself up, for one. You're a human being. Don't beat yourself up. Forgive yourself. But then also ask yourself, what triggered me? Was it my environment? Was it my train of thought, some emotions I was going through? Were I in my feelings? Was it something else? Was it being pressured too much? Whatever the case may be, what was it that was different to cause that moment to turn around on you? What took your moment away from you and handed it back to where your pain was? Ask yourself that. It might have not been so much as going to a rehabilitation place per se. Let's say that did work for you. Obviously, whatever caused you to relapse triggered you on whatever it was to make that moment change for you. And it wasn't necessarily the rehabilitation, because you did that 6 months ago. One moment does not undo all of your rehabilitation. One moment undid one moment. So take that one moment to reflect on what triggered you in that moment. And take what you've learned and what you've lived and what has helped you survive the past 6 months, and therefore in rehabilitation, to help you get through the next moment. Look at it that way. And say if you didn't go to you didn't go to rehabilitation, and you've been doing this cold turkey, or you've been tapering down, or whatever the case may be. However you've been doing it on your own. What is the root of your pain? What has caused you your pain? I don't know. Everything, man. There's something in there. And there might be a lot of things in there. But it also comes down to one thing. Everything but you. Because when you look in that mirror, and I said this in one of my other podcasts, and I'm going to say it again. You look at that mirror, who do you see? Do you see you? Or do you see a reflection of everything, everybody, and everything has made you see yourself as? Who do you really see? Whose mirror are you looking in? Theoretically. Hypothetically, whatever word you want to use. Take back your reflection. Take back your mirror. Look at yourself again for the first time. Take that next breath and see you. Self-reflection. Self-reflection. For the first time in this world, in this time, in this lifetime of yours, in this moment that you breathe, look at your own reflection. You don't even need a mirror to see yourself. And you have to remember, let me rephrase that. try to find ways to remember that you might not be enough for everybody else, or they might have not made you feel like you're enough for everything and everybody else. But damn it, you are enough for you. You are enough. And no one-time high, no one-time drink, no one-time nail salon, not one cucumber, if you will, not one cigarette can take that beautiful thing or deserve that beautiful moment of yours. There's something always good out of everything bad in this world. I know that for a fact. The deepest, hardest trauma in this world, there is something good that comes out of it. And you might think, no. You're full of shit. Depends on what perspective you're looking at. And you might not never see it. You might not understand why. And it might not even dawn on you for years to come. If even it's just you getting through that trauma and taking your next breath. Something good came out of that. Sometimes you just need to say thank you and count your blessings. And sometimes that will take a long time to be able to heal from. Because sometimes those scars that run deep are not even on the outside of your skin. And those are the ones that you self-medicate from. So if you don't know where they're at, what they look like, or why they're even there, how do you know what to heal? I don't know. Only you can answer that. What do you need to see in that mirror reflection? What do you need to hear you say to yourself? I used to stand in that mirror and yell at myself, cuss myself out, call myself names. I'm worthless. Nobody's going to want me. I'm damaged goods. People are better off without me. The list goes on and on and on. Why can't I stand in that mirror and say, I'm smart. I'm brave. I'm kind. I'm giving. I'm worth it. I'm loved. I'm beautiful. I'm needed. I'm silly. A sense of humor. I am enough. I should not have to downgrade myself. I should not have to belittle myself. I should not have to dumb myself down. I should not have to settle myself for society to look at me and say, you're worth being a part of this world. Welcome. Who the hell are you? Sit your ass down. I got my own table, thank you. I don't need to do that. And I am teaching myself that's okay. For every time I've looked in that mirror and I've hated me, is every time I make a face at myself and make myself laugh. And I'll take out my false teeth. Yes, I got false teeth. I've talked about it in my other podcast. And I ain't ashamed of it. I'll drive the route down the road holding my teeth in my hand, eating a donut in the other one. Mind your business. I'll take my teeth out and I'll stand in front of that mirror and I'll make the weirdest, silliest faces. But it beats me bawling my eyes out with curtains so thick that I'm drowning and I can't breathe. And I don't know how to swim out of it. And there's nobody to save me. And you know what? I will not apologize for that. And if somebody walks up and hears me talking to myself and do my little goofy voices and impersonations and whatever, making noises and being, I don't know, crazy, I don't know. So be it. Would they rather walk by me and find my dead body? Because I couldn't take it anymore and I said I've had enough? Would they rather do that? If so, they got bigger problems than I do. Heaven help them. I'll pray for them. And I'm not being a smartass. I'm sincere. But remember, if you can, you're not going to know the answers to questions you don't even need to ask, don't even know to ask yourself. So don't beat yourself up on that. Because I'm going to tell you, you can't ask yourself questions and answers if you don't even know what the subject is about. So you need to stop and take a look. It's something you probably have been made feel guilty to even look at. You. You are the question. What do you need? What do you want? Need. I'm selfish if I say something I need. You know what? You know how many times I've said that to myself? Oh, I need this. Oh my gosh, you're so selfish. Need. No, you know what, dag nugget? I need. I need me. I need me. That's the answer to the question. What do you need? That's your question. Answer. I need me. That might not be your question answer, but it's mine. Feel free to borrow it. Feel free to embrace it. Feel free to share it. Feel free to believe it and feel it. Because you can say and say and say whatever you want to yourself. And please do if it's positive. Positive reinforcement. I know all too well how much I've reinforced the negativity on myself. I've said it enough over the years, and if I haven't, people have made up for it. Redirect it. Positive. And, excuse me, there's nothing wrong with being positive. There's nothing selfish in that. And I lose track of what I'm saying, so sometimes I might ask a question and I forget I asked it and answered it. So if I did just then, I'm sorry, because I feel like I kind of did, but then I don't remember. Because this is me. This is me. And you know what? It's me. And if somebody don't love me for all my perfectly imperfections, they're missing out on a very wonderful, special, and amazing person. Me. And I will not forget to try to remember, to not forget to remind myself of that. Because I am adamantly, wholeheartedly doing that in every way I can. And sometimes you might not be, excuse me, you might not be your best per se, but sometimes you are the best that you can be at that moment. Because not every time will it be the best, the best, of the best, of the best. Sometimes it's just the best you can. As long as you're honestly trying to give it your honest bestness. And yes, bestness is a word because I just said it. And sometimes that's all you need to do. Try your best. Even if you just open your eyes, get up to go to the bathroom and go back to bed, I applaud you. Now the next day, try to do something more. Get up, go to the bathroom, maybe brush your teeth. Then go back to bed if you need to. Next day, do something more. Get up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, comb your hair. Because even taking a shower in depression will be one of the hardest things you ever do in your life. And some will say, that is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. There is no way. How can be taking a shower be so hard? Well, bless your heart for not having to know that feeling. Because unless you've gone through it, don't be so quick to judge society if you don't know. Maybe it's not judging. Maybe I'm just asking a question. True? True. It's a fine line. It is a very fine line. Question 2. What types of support systems do you already have in place? Think about relationships with friends, families, co-workers, and other peers. So do you already have something in place? And again, if it didn't work, how can you fix that to work? Are the relationships helpful or hurtful to your sobriety, your health, and your well-being? In the space provided, write the pros and cons of continuing the relationship without changes, and the pros and cons of discontinuing the relationship. Question 1. Pros of continuing the relationship without making any changes. So say you were somebody and you continue on with this relationship and you don't make any changes at all. What is the pro of that? What's the good side of that? Then ask yourself, what's the bad side of that? And if you discontinue relationship, what is the positive side of that? And what is the negative side of that? And so it says to create your own boundaries. Probably going to do this section and then, oh, we're almost done. Hey. List all the list all the words you can't say. List all the relationships you have that could be determinant to your sobriety, your health and well-being. Next to the names, write a boundary that you need to create and maintain a healthy relationship. Do not think about the consequences right now. A name may have more than one boundary next to it. So say something that can deter you on your sobriety, your health, and your well-being. Maybe your significant other, for instance. Say you both use. So you name that person. And what boundary do you need to set with that person in order to maintain a good, healthy relationship with that person? So say like you've say you've got somebody and in a relationship and you want to stay with them, but being together in that kind of atmosphere is killing your relationship and you and them. So what boundary do you put that will help you to be able to keep that relationship with that person without it being toxic, without it being killing you, without you continuing to have to do your self-medication, self-harming, whatever it is? What boundary do you need? And you go through that with every single person and every single boundary that needs to work. And you can have multiple boundaries for one person if need be. There are no right or wrong answers. It's what you need. Because what you need might eventually be acknowledged and noticeable to others that might be able to help them see things that they didn't even realize they needed at all. Because maybe they didn't even realize they had an addiction. Or that they had more than just a habit. Establish consequences. For each relationship, think about the boundary that you set and reflect on the pros and cons that you created. So if you set a boundary, what are the positive sides of it and the negative sides of it? And be realistic about it. Got to be honest with yourself. And if these if these boundaries are not enforceable and they're not doable, or they don't respect those boundaries per se, then what consequences and choices do you have left on those boundaries? What do you do? And how will that affect you? Positively and negatively. There's a lot of questions to ask yourself. There's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of self-healing. There's a lot of self-acknowledgement. And there's a lot of being honest with yourself. Even if you don't realize that you're not even being dishonest. You might not even realize it. Especially if you're self-medicating and trying to heal from hurting and healing from coping and healing from this and that and the other. Your mind is not in the most level-headed spot sometimes. So all this sounds fine and dandy and full of candy, but in all honesty, if you're not able to handle noticing that you're even present in your life, per se. If you don't even know where you're at, what you're doing, you're stumbling, you're not coherent, you don't even know what's been done to you, you don't know what's been taken from you, or literally, you don't know what's been given to you, because you're so out of the loop of yourself. How can you make rational decisions then? What are you supposed to do? Well, if you're listening to this in your ear, that's step one. No, I take it back. It's not a step one. It's however many steps it took you to get to this level of listening to this podcast is where you're at. And I can't answer that question for you. Only you can. And I'm going to stop there on the ebook for now. Obviously, I have a few more. I stopped on page 40. So I'm sure there'll be, though I know, I'm not going to say I'm sure, I know there'll be more podcasts on this. I'm trying to get through this ebook. And at the same time, obviously, if you're listening to my podcast, I do put my own thoughts and words into it. And sometimes, I don't want to say I get carried away, but I do. But I don't want to look at it as a negative thing, because it's not. I believe that everybody needs that one moment. The one moment that they blinked through, that they'll never get back. And if I can help you to get that back and more, then that's what it's all about. And as long as I've got my moment to make a difference, then that's what I'm wholeheartedly and adamantly trying to continue to do. But I promise you, I will say this, I promise you, I am not on a pedestal. I do not have the answers. I do make mistakes. I am wrong. I do F up. I do. I am far from perfect. But I know one thing. I know two things. Let me rephrase that. I'm in your ear right now because I'm meant to be. And theoretically, I will be in that audience with you, listening to myself, because I too need to hear this. Because I need to hear exactly the same things I'm telling you. Because even if I help nobody else but myself, then that's what it's all about too. Because I'm trying to save my own life. Because for whatever reason, by the grace of God, I put that gun down that day. I put that gun down. And I did not pull that trigger. Because I was that close. I had it to my temple. And I will do everything in my capability to never go that way again. And if I can help anybody along the way, I will come back for you Because I will not leave you behind. Because even if you think you're worth that ending, that's all the more reason for me to come back for you. And on that note, I'm going to close out. Because I'm not going to start crying. But also too, we're at an hour and 45. I do pray for each one and every single one of you. Every night I do. I might not know you, might not know your story. I can't even see who listens to this. And I don't need to. I'm not going to walk on eggshells and change my tone of voice or what I say to patronize, please, or not piss somebody off because they're at the other end of this volume of speaker. Because this is me. This is my life. And this is my podcast. And these are my words. And this is me to you. And I hope that God holds you in your darkest times. And holds a light for you. So, no, I take that back. I hope you find your light in the darkness long enough so you can blow that candle out, so you can see your own reflection as it should be out of the spotlight and in your own mind. You don't need a light to brighten your way. Sometimes you need to turn the light out so you can actually see with your heart and your own eyes without the influences of the rest of the world blinding you. And if you've dedicated your life tonight to listen to me, as I always say wholeheartedly, I thank you for your time, because that is the one thing in your life you cannot get back, and you've decided to spend it with me. And if you are suffering with something, there are resources out there. There are people that care. 988 is a suicide prevention hotline. Find resources in your area. Reach out to me. Reach out to whoever you can. And I know that is easier said than done in your darkest moments. Try to figure out ways to learn how to cope, to calm yourself down. I have been learning that. Like I said before, I do the ABCs in my head repeatedly until I calm down enough to be able to say them without stuttering on them or, calming down. And sometimes I have to do sign language with them to multitask my brain, if you will, to detour my thoughts in different directions, to take them off of the focus of my pain, to calm myself down. And maybe that sounds silly to some people, and that does sound crazy, but that's who I am. Learn to know yourself. Because there's nothing wrong with not being society. And then therefore, there's nothing wrong with giving back to society. And I pray that makes sense to you. Because in my head it does. Anyway, on that note again, I'm going to close out for real. And if you have not checked out my other podcasts, please continue to do so. I have them on Podbean and a YouTube channel at Let Me Clear My Throat. And if you have any ideas or thoughts or anything, feel free to hit me up. On that note, I hope everybody has a safe and blessed evening. And I hope everybody has a safe and blessed moment in your mind. Good night.